I'm sure all of you are familiar with the Faculty Development Day thing, that you have no idea who's going to show up to these things. So I prepared a whole thing that, given the folks in this Zoom room, feels completely unnecessary now. I do not think I need to convince anyone who's here about the importance of quantitative reasoning in our curriculum, right? This is the morning session. This one is the talking about where this fits in our curriculum piece. And then I've got the afternoon one, which is more of a kind of a practical pedagogical thing. But for the curricular piece, really, I mean, this is I'm not going to say the launch, since we started talking about this stuff in the spring. But this is really the us diving into the work of figuring out how to build this in a more intentional, more explicit way into the curriculum that we present to our students, especially at the undergraduate level, but certainly at the graduate level as well. I think most of you here will have been familiar with or seen, or at least heard about the questionnaire that that I and Diana Pooley and others contributed to the creation of, where we asked people around the college kind of what are the skills in quantitative literacy and reasoning we expect students to have. I could actually see, I don't even know if it's worth sharing my screen for all this. Again, given the people here, I'm not even going to bother with a PowerPoint at this point. The questionnaire revealed what I know most, if not all of you here already know, right? That our students need to improve in their quantitative reasoning skills. You all know how crucial these skills are, right, for when our students join the workforce. The responses that we got to the questionnaire, right, regardless of where folks were coming from, didn't matter if they were coming from the STEM field, social sciences, or the humanities, just the ability for students to engage with numeric information in some way. Right? In fact, when we talk about quantitative reasoning, you could look at the way that CUNY defines this in pathways, but really we're talking about the ability of students to take numeric information and draw proper conclusions, right, using that information. And it comes in a variety of ways. We can teach these skills certainly in courses that are geared more specifically towards quantitative information. So when we think of especially our math sequence, or our math foundations courses, right, are really the place where this gets introduced to students. But what the shame of it is beyond the 9 credits that exist in our general education program, quantitative reasoning doesn't really fit into the curriculum. It exists in our strategic plan, right? We talk about the importance of quantitative reasoning. It exists in majors in some shape or form, but when you look at how majors, how courses, when you look at the attention that is or is not given to quantitative reasoning, what you see is a lack of consistency across the college. There are some programs where students may get a good bit of it before they graduate. There are many programs where if it happens incidentally. Even within our courses, what some looks at our own coursework that have found is that where it happens, it tends to happen incidentally. And if you think about it, and again, it may not be true of the group that I'm speaking to here, but if you look at some of the syllabi, right, in gen ed courses and in courses in majors that do tend to rely on quantitative reasoning. What you see in the courses, what you see in the readings is that the quantitative information is there. Numeric information is in the coursework, but it's never explicitly presented to students. So a good chunk of what I hope this conversation leads to today. Again, I had this whole plan in my head for how this would work, but we're already at 9:26 in the morning, and I'm just kind of diving in to the introduction of it. So rather than do what was planned, I'd rather just have a conversation with everyone in this room. Really starting with, and really the first thing I was going to talk about is, here I will show the screen for part of this. Let me see. It's really just to show, right. It's really just to show that part of it, right? So one of the first things that we need that we don't have is an idea of from an institutional perspective, what are the skills that all of our students should have by time they graduate? And one of the better ways that we could have this conversation is to look at different course levels, right? Different stages of the academic journey, regardless of what a student's major is, regardless of what courses they're taking, right? As students progress in their academic journey here, what are the quantitative literacy and quantitative reasoning skills they should be able to demonstrate? That also goes hand in hand with digital literacy. Indeed, it's become impossible to separate quantitative literacy from the tools that we use to express those skills. So when we talk about building quantitative reasoning into the curriculum, another discussion that we need to have is how we better integrate the tools that are available to students, and indeed the tools really that they will absolutely need proficiency in to begin careers, again, regardless of the career. How do we integrate tools like Excel, right, or spreadsheet related programs? I pick on Excel because we have an institutional license for Microsoft Office. Every student has access to it, and Lord knows, right, outside of here, I have not worked for a single company or institution that didn't use Microsoft Excel. I know there are other tools now, but every spreadsheet based program is based in some way off the Microsoft Excel template. So why not teach students that which we already give them institutional access to? How do we integrate that right into the curriculum so that while they're gaining the skills of using numeric information to draw proper conclusions, how do they also use tools like Excel, right, to do that kind of work? Let's see, already stuff in the chat. Yes, Valerie, I will happily make my slides that I have no intention of presenting today available to the entire group. Just again, given the group, it just seemed wholly unnecessary to go through a presentation, the type of which I created, but kind of had a feeling I wouldn't exactly need. So my plan was to put y'all in breakout rooms and kind of go through it that way. I think there's enough of us here. Maybe I could squeeze kind of 2 breakout rooms out of it, Dan, for about, again, we'll take 10 minutes. And what I'd like you to do in your breakout session is, whoever's in breakout room 1, you take the 100 and the 200 level, breakout room 2, the 300 and the 400 level. And what I'm going to ask you all to come up with is one, if possible, one quantitative reasoning outcome. So some skill that every student, regardless of their major, right, should be expected to do, and one digital literacy goal that accompanies that. And I'll see you all in 10 minutes and we'll talk about it. Welcome back. Who wants to start? We'll start with someone from breakout room 1. Anyone?
And I was saying Andrew was kind of our leader. He doesn't look like he agrees with me.
I mean, I can chime in. We had a conversation mostly where we were talking about activities we use to promote digital and quantitative literacy, but some of our online folks who are like perhaps in transit did the best job, I think, articulating those as goals. So Wen said using quantitative evidence to support a claim. Chloe said finding information students need to support their arguments, evaluating the sources and information, interpreting graphs, charts, and tables while being able to make them to support an argument, and then finding data sources. And for digital, we talked a lot about sort of media literacy, digital literacy. So, the difficulties students have with evaluating information as well as finding it. So we would envision that being really important for a goal. So, does anybody else have anything to add?
Someone, I think you were the one, suggested maybe we ought to have some sort of drop-in center for students who are puzzled or stymied or somehow at a crossroads, and they need some guidance, some help, someone to discuss the assignment and what they need to do for it.
Well,
We have that.
Which is what?
We have both Math Lab and Stat Lab for exactly that.
Oh. Does Math Lab, do those teach Excel skills as well?
They don't teach, they respond to student questions and needs around homework and other sort of issues. So if it's an Excel question, they will do it. They don't teach Excel. I think that's our job. Or actually, it used to be, I mean, that's actually something Do It could do in sort of the basic format. They used to do this. They used to regularly teach basic Excel, Word skills, and pre-pandemic, that was all pre-pandemic. Post-pandemic, that stuff is all gone by the wayside.
I had no idea.
I think one of the things we were talking about is it would be great to have some sort of one-stop shopping for an Excel, basic curriculum you could hand somebody, because my 400 internship students, 400 level last semester, all the one skill they all agreed they wanted for the job, for looking for a job was Excel. And it would have been great just to say, okay, here, do this exercise, go to this John Jay website and do these 3 modules, just something like that, so that we're not all kind of reinventing that wheel alone, just for the basics.
And Dan had put in the chat, I guess, in response to an earlier question, but this is something that the MSRC does in small measure, right, through tutoring, but it suggests also the possibility of an expanded role from the MSRC. For those of you who don't know, that's the Math Science Resource Center. It's where our our math tutoring is housed. Having the folks there help come up with materials that students can use is actually a great idea. And in terms of finding stuff, right, I'm not going to put Kathleen on the spot, but that's one of the roles that our librarians serve, to help students actually find that kind of data, right, quantitative information. In the afternoon presentation, I think I have a link to some of our library resources, right, in that regard. And the library has tons and tons of stuff that students could use, that it would certainly help faculty to talk to someone in the library about what's available, right, what's pertinent to the classes they teach, to see what can be integrated in. It kind of shades in the area of pedagogy, right, as opposed to curriculum, but those two heavily overlap anyway. Right, so in what you all are talking about, so I wonder what's, when we talk about even something like using quantitative information to support a claim, or interpreting tables, what does a 100 level outcome look like as opposed to a 200? That is, when students go through the 100 level courses that they go through in their freshman year, right? What is this, if you could narrow down one thing that all students, I don't care what their intended major is, what should all students be able to do to then put themselves in a position to be successful in their 200 level courses? And this is open to anyone. It doesn't just have to be breakout room 1. If anyone wants to chime in with an idea.
I would say the most simple, Andrew, is for a lot of the claims or evidence to support claims is being able to understand and apply percentages, ratios, some of these basic things that you see in the newspaper on a day-to-day basis. We would hope that they come to the college with those basic quantitative skills, but I think we all can agree they don't. So things in that realm, and even some basic descriptive statistics, not to a far level, but central tendency or mean, median, mode. Those are the bare minimums, I think.
Yeah, we did talk about that as well, Heath. I had left that out. Just that was sort of the starting point, the basic,
Correct.
how do you talk about percentages, et cetera.
Yeah.
So then what does a 200 level outcome look like? Yeah, so how does that skill?
How does that sequence?
So if we could build into the curriculum a way to get every student who starts here, right, to be able to understand what I'll just call basic transformations, right, of numbers, right, ratios, percentages, right, relative.
Yes.
If we can get every student to do that, and Heath, I'll even grant you some basic descriptive statistics, right?
Thank you.
I dare I say a standard deviation, but I won't even add that one in. But if we can get kind of that basic numeracy, where does it go next? Kathy?
What I was going to say is that, I mean, maybe at the 100 level, they apply these concepts to sort of popular literature, newspaper, USA Today, you know, magazine kind of information. And then at the 200 level, they gradually get into more academically oriented, like a sprinkling of, you know, approachable journal articles, for example,
Yep.
where they can actually look and see what the methodology maybe somebody used to arrive at those numbers.
I agree completely. And maybe even being able to calculate some of those things themselves, you know what I mean, would be the next progression. I agree with Kathy completely.
How about breakout group 2? What do these look like at the 300 and 400 level? Now, 300 and 400 level gets a little tough because now we get out of the general education curriculum, and we're really, you know, firmly entrenched in majors. And in the STEM fields, right, we expect that students are getting a lot of what they need through their coursework. So whether it's applied math, whether it's I'll think about fire science because I've got some STEM folks here, computer science, right? And so the sciences, right? Usually the course, the necessary quantitative reasoning is built into the coursework in those majors. What about the humanities? Right. What should students who aren't naturally receiving quantitative reasoning in their major curricula, regardless of what their major is, what should they be able to do? Right, again, we want to produce students who can you know, get themselves into good careers when they leave here. We want to produce students who are ready for graduate school, right, which we didn't talk about. I didn't get to talk about much, right? If we started at 9, I probably would have brought in some of the grad school stuff that I've learned over the course of the year. But I'll just mention quickly, our graduate students feel this crunch as well. I know several of you here have been involved or are currently involved with our master's programs. It is an issue. It is an issue because nearly all of our 13 master's programs have some explicit form of quantitative reasoning component. But we don't address these things very well at the undergraduate level. And it's not just John Jay students who go into our master's programs. In general, we see master's students now who feel very unprepared for what we expect them to be able to do in terms of understanding and producing quantitative research. So what does this look like as we progress to the 300 and 400 levels? What should we have students able to do? You can add, I could say run a regression, but that's practical for most of the social sciences. Not for every program. Valerie.
Okay, so there are a couple of things. We got, our group got a little off track. First, we worked on some definitional stuff, but I think, and you've asked now several questions and I'm going to answer them both broadly. Our students are facing the same issues that nationally students are facing. Our 100 level students resisted Excel. You would have thought that we were trying to punish them by teaching them Excel. So there's a buy-in component here that we have not addressed and we need to. We brought in a ringer who was a recent graduate of a school that all the students went, ooh. And the thing that he said was, I needed to know Excel when I got this job. I'm learning it on the job and it's hurting me. And it was. He didn't retain the job and it was his dream job. So the kind of thing that we want them to be able to do is I teach Roper v. Simmons, where the Supreme Court ruled that you can't sentence minors to death. There's a portion of the rule of the dissenting decision where the argument is made by a Supreme Court justice that X% of people who sentence kids to death, of states that have the death penalty, sentence them to death, and therefore there is unity about sentencing people to death. My MA students have a hard time understanding that we've left out, a third of the states in that argument.
We'll walk over.
Yeah, we'll work together. I mean,
So I think those are the kinds of skills we need them to be able to do. This is reasoning, not math.
If I could just quickly jump in agreement, that's absolutely critical. That just being able to take I'll say a legal rule and apply it to different fact patterns, they cannot do. And that relates to the idea of operationalization we talked about in our other group. It's being able to take concepts, break them down into the parts and apply them in different scenarios. And legal areas is one good example. We've seen that in the assessment of our undergraduates regularly. I could not agree with Valerie more.
Jotting down notes as we go. So again, I'll ask a similar question to what I asked before, right? So what does this look like at the 300 level, as opposed to then how students express this skill as they're getting ready to graduate, right? So certainly understanding the assumptions that underlie, right, the conclusions that others draw, right? It's one of those. It's a central skill to understanding any kind of whether it's a journal article, whether it's something written in the popular press, right? Court opinions. Anytime someone is drawing a conclusion that uses quantitative information, right, it's key to understand the assumptions that underlie what went into making that conclusion to be able to evaluate them. All right, what does it look like at the 300 level? What does it look like beyond that? Andrew?
At the 400 level, I would say it's necessary to present some critique, critical thinking. How was the measurement made? What was included, excluded? Could it be interpreted differently? Are they over-interpreting? Are there other factors that weren't taken into account? So somewhere at the higher level courses, maybe even 300, surely 400, critical thinking should enter into the interpretation of the data.
What about beyond? What should a John Jay graduate be able to do, again, regardless of major? And Fritz and Valerie, I'm reading the comments. Yes, students need to know that these skills are job relevant. They absolutely need to know that. And I will, at any student-centered forum that I can get myself in front of, I will get that message to them. I will have students come back, alums come back to talk about how important these skills are. That's also the job of the college as well, right? The entire college community, to let students know why these skills are so central. It's not just quantitative reasoning, right? We're starting here, but this is not the end of how we refocus our attention on what are these critical academic skills, right? Quantitative, as Andrew just said, right? But quantitative reasoning is a form of reasoning. It's a form of thinking. It is an important form of thinking that we know leads students to understand the context that they are looking at these things in better. Students who can engage in quantitative reasoning, right, effectively, they also learn content better, right, is what most studies show us, right? That if we can take information, right, and students understand how to apply quantitative reasoning skills to that information, they retain the content, right, better than they do otherwise. There's also some work out there that has also suggested that among all of the different types of skills that students can develop that predict higher LSAT scores, students who've taken quantitative reasoning courses tend to do significantly better, right, on whether it's the LSAT or any kind of standardized test in that vein. How we get that message out, right, that's probably a topic for another faculty development day. But in terms of this one, since we now have 2 minutes left, any final comments?
Too short.
I'm gonna say this is the first of what I hope will be many conversations. This is a group of people whom I've had these conversations with already. For the most part, for those of you that have not heard me prattle on about quantitative reasoning yet, thank you for being here today, and really thank you for all of you for kind of rolling with the punches. I'm sorry about the technical difficulties that this started off with. Even though we started 20 minutes late, this was one of the most productive kind of sets of 40 minutes I've had in a while on this topic. You all have wonderful ideas about how to bring this to our students. And I hope that you will continue to engage with me in this conversation as we develop this more. Oh, God, don't. I mean, listen to that because Kathleen's amazing. Don't listen to it for me. Again, it's evidence that I'm willing to go wherever, whenever to talk about this stuff. I don't care if it's to faculty, to staff, to students. You know, I'm gonna go over by a minute or so. For those of you who don't know my background in this is something I have cared deeply about for a very long time. That NSF funded the NSF grant funded community-wide examination of QR that Fritz mentioned before. Fritz, I'm just going to ask quick, is that related to niche? Because I remember them applying for NSF funding for all
No,
that.
it comes out of Queensboro, and I'll quickly, since we've only got a few minutes left, what they found in this 5th year of the program is that teaching QR skills across the curriculum, like teaching writing across the curriculum, exposes faculty to a fair amount of student unhappiness. Students don't like math, and therefore they don't like the faculty who teach math. And so what they found they had to do was, in fact, write letters to the P&B for everyone involved in the project, because everyone's evaluations went down when they teach QR. And if we talk about getting student buy-in, we also have to get faculty buy-in.
Indeed.
And this is not a small issue.
No.
Very interesting.
An assurance that to ask faculty to do one more thing that frustrates students is to guarantee faculty won't do it. And we need to do something to protect the faculty doing the heavy lifting.
I agree fully, Fritz. And getting faculty buy-in is one of the reasons why I keep doing stuff like this. I will, again, like I said, I'll talk to anyone and everyone to make sure that we're doing this as a community, and that our entire community, including those who sit above me, know about the importance of this work and are willing to support the faculty in doing it. And with that, it is 10:01. I was supposed to have some kind of all right, I'm gonna share my screen quick so you guys get the last slide thing that I was asked to show. Thank you for joining us. Screenshots, quotes, insights, all of the information is there. Coming up for those of you who are on campus, right, there's the coffee, cookies, and conversation, which is in the faculty staff dining room. There'll be a Zoom session on CUNY's transition to Brightspace. Stop the share here. For those of you that have questions about that transition, that you always feel free to ask me. I'm not going to say that outside of this room, but it's, you know, it's kind of most of that is in my lap to begin with. So I will always happily share anything that I know about it. We are transitioning, and we are making sure that we can do that transition in a way that leaves everyone feeling comfortable about teaching their courses in that new environment. And as we get information from CUNY, I will always pass that along to you all. Again, for those of you that are on campus during lunch, someone from CUNY Online will be here to have a town hall of sorts to talk about the transition and the timeline. If you're here, I encourage you all to come. Should be an informative discussion. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you very much.